You think you know the story. A poor street boy, a magic lamp, an all-powerful genie who grants 3 wishes. But what if I told you the tale of Aladdin hides secrets far older and more sinister than the enchanting adventure we remember? Because buried beneath this famous fairy tale are fragments of folklore and reaching back thousands of years to ancient gods, forbidden knowledge, and a legendary king who commanded demons. Once you hear the real history behind Aladdin and his lamp, you may never see the story the same way again. Before we unearth its dark secrets, let us return to the tale itself. Once upon a time in one of the ancient cities of China, there lived a boy named Aladdin. He was poor, idle, and fond of avoiding work at all costs, much to the despair of his widowed mother. One day, a mysterious stranger arrived in the city. He claimed to be Aladdin's long-lost uncle. In truth, he was a sorcerer from the Maghreb. He promised the boy new clothes, a merchant's training, a better life. In exchange, he said, he needed Aladdin's help retrieving a treasure hidden underground. The sorcerer led him to a lonely place beyond the city walls. There, using strange words and chants, he caused the earth to open. From the dust rose the mouth of an enchanted cave. He told Aladdin to go inside. Only the touch of an innocent could enter safely, he said, and he was to bring out an old bronze oil lamp. The sorcerer slipped a ring onto the boy's finger for luck. Aladdin stepped into a glittering underworld, trees hung with jeweled fruit, floors lined with exquisite carpets, alcoves filled with treasure. He found the lamp easily enough and returned to the entrance. But when he asked for help climbing out, the sorcerer demanded the lamp first. Realizing he had been deceived, Aladdin refused. In a rage, the sorcerer sealed the cave, trapping the boy inside. In despair, Aladdin wrung his hands and felt the ring upon his finger. As he rubbed it, a genie appeared in a burst of light, bowed low, and asked what he commanded. With a single wish, Aladdin found himself standing safely outside the cave, lamp still in hand. When he returned home, his mother tried to scrub the old lamp clean, hoping they might sell it. But the moment she rubbed it, a second genie, far greater and more terrible than the first, erupted forth. This spirit was bound to the lamp and to whoever held it. From that moment on, Aladdin's fortunes changed. With the genie of the lamp at his command, he gained wealth, power, and the notice of the Sultan himself. He won the heart of Princess Badroulbadir, and with a wish, the genie raised a palace for them, a palace so magnificent it made the Sultan's own look small. But far away, the sorcerer heard of Aladdin's rise. Burning with envy, he returned to the city in disguise and tricked the princess, who did not know the lamp's worth, into handing it over. At once, the sorcerer summoned its genie and commanded him to carry Aladdin's palace, with the princess still inside it, across the world to his home in the Maghreb. When Aladdin discovered the theft, he still had the magic ring. Its genie was weaker, but strong enough to carry him across deserts and seas until he stood before the stolen palace. With the princess's quick wits and his own courage, Aladdin set his plan in motion. She pretended to welcome the sorcerer's company. She flattered him, spoke softly, invited him to dine with her. She brought out a cup laced with a sleeping draught Aladdin had given her. Trusting her completely, the sorcerer drank deeply. The moment he collapsed, Aladdin rushed in, seized the lamp, and killed him. With the lamp reclaimed, Aladdin wished the palace home again. But the danger was not over. The sorcerer's brother, even more powerful and cunning, sought revenge. Disguised as a holy woman famed for her cures, he gained entry to the palace and won the princess's trust, until the genie of the lamp warned Aladdin in time. The impostor was unmasked and slain. Peace returned at last. In time, Aladdin succeeded the Sultan and ruled wisely, and the poor, ragged boy became a king thanks to courage, cunning, and the two spirits bound to a ring and a lamp. And they lived happily ever after, or so the story goes. That is Aladdin as it appears in the collection we call 1001 Nights in English, more familiarly, the Arabian Nights. But Aladdin's story did not start there. In fact, by the time it first appeared on paper, it was already a mystery in its own right. The tale of Aladdin and the wonderful lamp is one of the most famous in that collection. Yet it was never part of the original Arabic manuscripts. It was added to the European version of the Nights in the early 18th century by a French Orientalist named Antoine Galland, who had heard it from a Maronite Christian traveler from Aleppo named Hanna Diyab around 1709. Galland's expanded French translation, Les Mille et une Nuits, published in 12 volumes between 1704 and 1717, introduced Aladdin to Europe in volumes 9 and 10 of 1712. The story became an instant sensation. But Aladdin is what scholars call an orphan tale, a story with no surviving earlier text in Arabic. So where did Aladdin truly come from? Researchers are still debating. It is most likely an oral folk tale from the Middle East that Hanna Diyab had learned in his youth, perhaps in his hometown of Aleppo or during his travels. Diyab's own memoirs, written in Arabic in his later years and rediscovered only in the 20th century in the Vatican Library, describe his journey to Paris with the French adventurer Paul Lucas and his time in Galland's apartments telling stories. Some scholars have even speculated that Diyab drew on his own experiences. He describes, for instance, witnessing a local boy uncovering treasures from a hidden underground chamber. Could this real-life incident have planted the seed for Aladdin's enchanted cave? We may never know for certain, but it is a tantalizing possibility. What we do know is that Aladdin was shaped by many cultures. Galland's French version was the first written record, but the story carries the fingerprints of the Middle East, Central Asia, and even Europe. Notably, the original tale is set in one of the cities of China, yet everything about it feels Middle Eastern. The ruler is called a sultan, not an emperor. Characters swear by Allah. The city has Muslim merchants and tailors. In Arab folklore, China was often a placeholder for any far-off and exotic land. Some scholars believe the setting was inspired by the distant regions along the Silk Road, Turkestan, and what is now Xinjiang in western China, where Islamic and Chinese cultures blended for centuries. In any case, the Chinese veneer is paper-thin, a touch of Oriental spice on a story that is fundamentally Islamic in flavor. Over time, Aladdin's tale was translated, retranslated, and embellished. By the 19th century, it had spread back into the Middle East in Arabic translations of the European versions. Variants of the story or elements of it have since been found in oral traditions from the Middle East to India to Europe. Folklorists classify it as tale type 02561, Aladdin, part of a family of stories about a poor young man who discovers an enchanted object and a supernatural servant. The pattern recurs across many cultures: rise from poverty by a magic item, loss of that item to a villain, and its eventual recovery. The tale feels both timeless and universal, but Aladdin's lamp and its genie set it apart. For their roots, we must venture deeper still, into the deserts, ruins and ancient lore of the Near East, where the legends of the jinn first arose. At the heart of Aladdin's story is the jinni in Arabic, a powerful spirit bound to an object. In our modern pop culture, gennies are often portrayed as comical, wish-granting helpers, but their true origin is far darker and far older. Long before Islam, long before Aladdin, the Arabs believed in the jinn, supernatural beings inhabiting the world, often invisible, capricious, and dangerous. The concept of jinn predates written history in the Middle East. These entities are ancient. The pre-Islamic Arabs imagined the jinn as spirits of the wild, the nymphs and satyrs of the desert. They lurked in desolate places, ruins and graveyards, haunting the edges of civilization. Travelers in lonely deserts would whisper prayers or make offerings to avoid disturbing the jinn that might be lying in wait. The jinn embodied the untamed forces of nature, the howling wind, the blazing heat, the dangers of the unknown wilderness. Some jinn were thought to be malevolent demons from the very beginning, blamed for misfortune and illness. Others were venerated as minor gods. By the 6th century AD, many Arab tribes, including groups in Mecca, were making sacrifices and offerings to the jinn, seeking their guidance. There is evidence that the jinn were once worshipped in Arabia, considered children of the gods, or lesser deities connected with rivers, trees, and deserts. Some scholars have suggested that the jinn began as the old nature gods and goddesses of the Mesopotamians and other ancient peoples. When newer high gods displaced them, those older spirits did not disappear. They were demoted into jinn, demonized by the new faiths, but never fully forgotten. So how far back do these ancient spirits go? Possibly 5,000 or 6,000 years, perhaps more. Consider Pazuzu, a demon of the wind from Sumerian and Babylonian mythology. He is best attested in Mesopotamian sources from the 1st millennium BC, in the Neo-Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian periods, though the wind demon tradition he belongs to stretches back into the early Sumerian world. Pazuzu is depicted as a monstrous hybrid, a snarling lion or dog-like head, 4 great beating wings, a scorpion's tail curling behind him, the talons of an eagle, the body of a man. He was the lord of the southwest wind, the bringer of fevers, drought, and locusts. And here is the strange irony: for all his ferocity, the Mesopotamians wore small bronze amulets of Pazuzu's head around their necks, not to invoke him, but to ward off something worse. The demon Lamashtu, killer of newborns, was thought to fear him. Pazuzu was set to fight evil with evil. And Pazuzu was not alone. Across ancient Mesopotamia, Assyrian palaces were guarded by towering carvings of supernatural beings, what early scholars loosely called winged gennies, and what we now properly call Apkallu. These figures appear again and again in royal art, especially in edifices of kings like Nasser-Pul-Zatu at Nimrud, carved into stone nearly 3,000 years ago. They are bearded, powerful, half divine beings with wings, neither angels nor gods nor human, but something in between. Some carry a small ritual bucket and a cone, believed to be tools of purification, dipping the cone in the bucket and sprinkling sacred liquid. Others raise their hands in gestures of blessing or power, and this is where things become truly fascinating. Several scholars have noted that Pazuzu and other Mesopotamian spirits resemble the prototypes of the Arabian jinn. They belong to a tradition of chaotic beings of air and darkness that stretches back into prehistory, long before the first myths were written down. So when we speak of Aladdin's genie, we may be speaking of an entity whose roots reach not to medieval folklore, but to the very dawn of civilization. That brings us to the word itself. Jinn comes from an Arabic root meaning to hide or to conceal. True to their name, the jinn move invisibly through the world, manifesting only when they choose, and often in frightening forms. When Islam emerged, it did not dismiss these spirits. It absorbed them into its worldview. The Quran teaches that God created the jinn from smokeless fire as a parallel race to humans who were made of clay. The jinn in Islamic tradition have free will. Some are good, many are evil, and all will be judged by God just as humans are. But even as Islam theologized the jinn, the old folklore never went away. For more than 1,000 years, people across the Middle East still told jinn stories around campfires, still wore amulets to keep them at bay, still accused mischievous jinn when things went bump in the night. Medieval Islamic scholars even cataloged them. The gulls, flesh-eating spirits haunting graveyards and lonely ruin. The ifrits, powerful, wicked jinn of fire. The marids, towering spirits, often linked with the sea, renowned for their strength and their defiance. And here is where things grow more interesting still. In Western translations, the Arabic jinni was rendered as genie, a word which in French, the language of Galland, also echoed the Latin genius, originally a personal guardian spirit, a protective essence. That subtle shift changed everything. French readers did not imagine a terrifying desert spirit of fire and air. They imagined a clever, occasionally mischievous household guardian. English translators followed their lead. What began as a dangerous, volatile being, half demon, half elemental, became, in the European imagination, a magical helper. Still powerful, still exotic, but unmistakably tamed. So, by origin, Aladdin's genie is a demon of the lamp, a fire spirit forced into servitude, which brings us to one of the most intriguing questions of all. How do you enslave a demon? Folklore across cultures is full of tales of magicians and wise men binding otherworldly beings to their will, and no legend looms larger in this regard than that of King Solomon. Long before the stories of the knights were collected, Solomon, the biblical son of David, was said in Jewish, Christian, and Muslim traditions to possess miraculous authority over spirits. The Testament of Solomon and various Middle Eastern legends tell that Solomon possessed a signet ring given to him by God, often called the Seal of Solomon, inscribed with the name of God or with a six-pointed star. With this ring, Solomon could command demons, the jinn, and even devils. The original Aladdin story does not feature one genie, but two, one in the lamp and another inside a ring. It is hard not to see the connection. The Quran itself hints at Solomon's power over the jinn, describing how they labored under his command, building temples, crafting artworks, forging metal, even diving for pearls at his order. Later Arabic folktales expand the picture. They claim Solomon used his legendary wisdom to put the jinn to work building the Temple of Jerusalem and countless other wonders. Supernatural laborers kept busy so they would not cause mischief. But not all jinn obeyed. According to Middle Eastern legend, those who rebelled against Solomon's authority suffered a dire fate. The king imprisoned them in vessels of brass or iron, sealing each one shut with the imprint of his magic ring. One tale from the Nights, known as the Fisherman and the Jinni, preserves this memory vividly. A humble fisherman casts his net into the sea and dredges up a heavy copper bottle, stoppered with a lead cap stamped with the seal of Solomon. When he breaks the seal, a colossal ifrit erupts in a plume of smoke, roaring with fury. He believes Solomon has come to punish him again. He explains that he has been trapped for centuries. In the first 100 years, he had sworn to reward his rescuer with endless riches. In the second, he had promised to grant 3 wishes, a motif we recognize today. But no one freed him. By the 4th century of his imprisonment, his hope had curdled into rage, and he swore to kill whoever finally released him. The fisherman survives not through strength, but through cleverness. He feigns disbelief and says, how could such a vast and mighty spirit ever fit inside a bottle so small? Insulted, the ifrit pours himself back inside in a whirl of smoke to prove it. The moment the last wisp disappears, the fisherman slams the lid back on, trapping him once more beneath Solomon's seal. Only after forcing the spirit to swear a sacred oath never to harm him does the fisherman reopen the bottle. This time the jinn keeps his word. By the end of the tale, the fisherman is richly rewarded for his discovery. This story gives us a crucial piece of the puzzle because it reveals something modern retellings often hide. A genie in a bottle is not living in a cozy home. It is serving a sentence. The bottle, or the lamp, is not a dwelling but a prison, which means Aladdin's genie was almost certainly imprisoned long before the story begins, trapped there by a powerful sorcerer, a magician, or perhaps by Solomon himself. By the time Aladdin finds it, the genie is bound to serve the holder of the lamp, without question, enslaved by magic. And it is worth noting that in the original tale, there is no limit to the wishes. The genie will do anything, so long as you have the lamp. For ancient audiences, this was a terrifying notion. Gaining power over a demon was a dangerous game because spirits sealed away so violently were sealed away for a reason. The motif of imprisoned spirits is not unique to Aladdin. It appears again and again across the ancient world. In Greek myth, Pandora did not open a box at all. She opened a great storage jar, a pithos. Inside were the spirits of plague, famine, madness, sorrow, and every imaginable evil, sealed away to protect humanity until her curiosity set them free. It is one of the oldest spirits released from a vessel myths we possess. We see another example in Homer's Iliad. The war god Ares was once imprisoned inside a bronze jar by two giants, the Elodi, Otis, and Ephialtes, and left there for 13 months. He suffered there until Hermes, alerted by the giant stepmother, broke the seal and stole him away. The pattern appears in Asia as well. In Chinese folklore, Taoist sorcerers were famed for binding spirits into ceramic jars, gourds, and bronze vessels, sealing them with talismans and incantations. Entire magical traditions revolve around these bottled demons, contained by paper seals and divine symbols. And in Mesopotamia, the oldest civilization of all, clay tablets describe rituals in which malevolent Udiku and Lilu spirits were trapped inside jars or clay vessels. Priests used wax, pitch, inscriptions, and ritual plugs to neutralize demons. Excavators have uncovered Aramaic incantation bowls from late antiquity, bowls inscribed with spirals of writing and the figure of a bound demon at the center, buried upside down in the floors of houses to trap whatever evil came near. In Europe, the Brothers Grimm recorded a tale called The Spirit in the Bottle, known in German as Der Geist im Glas. A woodcutter's son uncorks an old flask, and out erupts an enraged spirit who had been trapped there by a long-dead sorcerer. The spirit threatens the boy's life until the boy tricks him back into the bottle, echoing the fisherman and the Ifrit almost exactly. Another Grimm tale, The Blue Light, tells of a discharged soldier who discovers a magical lantern. When he lights it, a small spirit appears, not friendly by nature, but magically compelled to serve whoever lights the flame. The pattern is unmistakable. For thousands of years, people across countless cultures imagined gaining power over demons and other supernatural beings by confining them. It is a fantasy of control, the hope that the terrifying forces lurking in the dark could be contained, mastered, even used. But in these early stories, the imprisoned spirit is hardly ever grateful. It is resentful, hostile, simmering with rage. Only through cleverness, like the fisherman tricking the Ifrit, or through righteous authority, like Solomon acting under divine mandate, can a mortal survive the encounter. But there is one last piece of the puzzle we have not yet touched, and it has been hiding in plain sight the entire time: the cave. In most modern retellings, the Cave of Wonders is simply a magical vault stuffed with treasure. But in the original story of Aladdin, the cave is something far older, far darker, and far more symbolic. Because Aladdin's cave is not a treasure room, it is very likely an underworld. Across ancient mythology, caves are never just caves. They are thresholds, the places where our world touches the next. The Greeks believed entrances to Hades lay through deep caverns. The Babylonians in the underworld as a vast subterranean realm reached through pits in the earth. And in Arabian folklore, even into modern times, caves and ruins are the dwelling places of jinn, gulls, and the restless dead. So when the sorcerer leads Aladdin to a hidden cave and commands him to go down alone, this is no simple errand. It is a descent, a katabasis, the ancient Greek word for the journey of a hero into darkness. In this pattern, a chosen mortal must enter the underworld, face the unknown, and return with something powerful, something forbidden. In Mesopotamian myth, Gilgamesh travels the road of the sun through a mountain into realms beyond death, seeking the secret of eternal life. He returns with hard-won wisdom that transforms him. In Greek legend, Prometheus steals fire from the gods and delivers it to humankind, a dangerous, world-altering power taken from a realm mortals were forbidden to enter. Heracles, more famously known by his Roman name Hercules, descends into the underworld itself, facing the terrors of Hades to bring back Cerberus, the monstrous hound that guards the dead, a prize no mortal was ever meant to claim. Aladdin's cave is a test, a place of transformation, a symbolic death and rebirth. And what he finds there fits the pattern perfectly. Because in Near Eastern folk magic, spirits sealed in vessels were often buried underground. Incantation bowls, demon jars, and ritual pots were placed in pits or beneath foundations to keep imprisoned spirits away from the living. A sealed lamp in a cave is not a coincidence. It is exactly where an ancient magician would hide something far too dangerous to leave above the earth. And then there is the detail that always makes people ask the same question. Why does the sorcerer not go into the cave himself? In myth, this is a telltale sign. Guides to the underworld never cross the threshold. They point the way, but the chosen must go alone. In the Roman epic the Aeneid, the Cumaean Sibyl guides Aeneas only as far as the entrance to the underworld before sending him on. The Sibyl warns him in lines that have echoed for 2,000 years. Facilis descensus Averno, the descent into Avernus is easy. Coming back is the labor, the toil. In Greek myth, Hermes guides souls to the gates of Hades, but never walks the dark path with them. In Homer's Odyssey, the sorceress Circe shows Odysseus where to find the land of the dead, but he must enter it alone. Aladdin's sorcerer is playing the same role, the guide who knows the way into darkness, but who cannot step inside. So perhaps Aladdin is not merely a fairy tale at all. It reflects a ritual descent. A boy led into the underworld, a lamp containing even taken for the shadows, a story thread that reaches back to the very first myths humanity ever told. A poor street boy, a magic lamp, an all-powerful spirit. The shape of the story is simple. The history behind it is not.